instead of starting the year with a list of things you want to do, maybe have a look at the things you need to stop. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Helen Rosenzweig podcast. And you are watching our very first episode. It's 2025, and I know there's a lot of hype out there about, jumping into the new year. What are your goals? What are you going to do? And all the exciting things for 2025. And that is really great. But I have a bit of a different take on the start of a new year, and it's based on what I learned last year. So that's what I would like to talk with you today as the beginning of this podcast and the beginning of 2025. So last year for me, I definitely jumped into 2024 with a list of goals and all this rolling momentum that I'd had, and doing this, doing that. I think one of my new products had just arrived just in January, so it was perfect for this idea that I had of all these things I was going to do in 2024. But I think my mistake, firstly, was running on momentum from previous seasons. Now, I've been in coaching groups, business coaching groups before and things, and there's been a lot of talk about momentum and how you've got to get momentum going, because once you get momentum going, it's really hard to stop you. And that was said in a positive way, which I guess you can take. And that's what I picked up from as well. And now I realize that actually has a really negative side to it as well, because it can mean you're out of control. And I think that's where I was at the start of last year. I had gained all this momentum with what I was doing. I was now out of control because I hadn't actually stopped to see if this was still the path I should have been on, if that's the path God wanted me on, if these were the things God still wanted me to be doing. It's just so easy to get caught up in the excitement. I don't know, maybe it's a mum thing. Maybe it's a craving that we have to step outside of the monotony of parenting. Like, as much as we love our kids, the day in, day out, it's really draining. And so sometimes I think a lot of us mums, particularly while we're doing business on the side, or our careers sort of on the side, we're still trying to manage that. And I think we're craving some excitement and some purpose, maybe even as well. And I think that comes from all sorts of things. But I think that's what I was caught up in, that excitement and doing something and looking like you're doing something and looking like you're achieving something. So I started 2024 in that space. And come March, everything came to a standstill, because I came to a standstill. I was not coping with this pace of life that I was going at, and I was doing so many things I didn't want to be doing anymore. And in fact, I was wondering how I got there. Why was I doing this? Why was I doing that? How did I get here? And I think, and that's where I basically pulled up stumps. Sorry, non-Aussies, non-sporting people. I'm talking probably to a lot of women, and I said pull up stumps. Okay, so which is a cricket reference. I basically stopped. And I'll tell you the interesting timing of this stopping. March. In February, our church does a 3-week fast to start the year. And I did that 3-week fast, and it's different. Everyone does a different kind of fasting through it. And I chose to fast a couple of days a week for the 3 weeks. And it's interesting that it's March that everything upended. And I believe this is because God rerouted me back to the right path. I wasn't on the right path. I was doing things I didn't want to be doing. I was really stressed and cranky, and I just wasn't fulfilled. I was tired, and so I don't want you to go into 2025 off the momentum of an old season. I think it's really important that we stop at the beginning of the year and we have our rest, because after Christmas, we actually do need our rest. And I think it's quite convenient that in Australia, because it's school holidays, January, things don't really pick up in Australia until January is done, once the kids go to school. So you basically have a month, and this is the 8th of January already that I'm recording this. I'm not sure when you're going to see this, but I will put this one up soon, even though I am not releasing a full schedule of podcasts yet until February, because it's the beginning of the year and we're having that downtime in January. So I'm going to put this up earlier in January, simply because I hope that it will help some people. So it's good that in Australia we have January as that downtime, and sometimes we try to fight it and we think we've got to get started and go, don't. Take the time to stop, reassess, and seek the Lord, and let Him guide your steps for the year and set your goals. And He'll do that. And I particularly mean this for mums, because we still have the kids home until the end of January. In fact, this year the kids go back February 3. I've never seen it that late. But anyway, and there's only so much you can do when the kids are home, which I am definitely reminded of every January. So I like to not have major plans in January. So March last year for me, big changes had to be made. And I wanted to show you then, instead of starting the year with a list of things you want to do, maybe have a look at the things you need to stop. So I have looked back on 2024 and I have a list of things I stopped in 2024. That seems to be the biggest step I actually took last year, was stopping things. And the results were really incredible. I ended the year just so much more at peace. Like, sometimes that momentum inside you that you think is momentum and excitement is actually just a storm that's raging, a different kind of storm. So by the end of the year, I didn't have that storm anymore, and I have that peace. And the kids told me I'm not so cranky anymore. And a lot of people didn't understand what was going on, and they could see a change. And it's interesting that most people automatically thought something was wrong, because I think they couldn't process. All they could process was something's different. And because they couldn't understand it, in most cases, it came out as an assumption that something was wrong. So I had a lot of people checking in to see if I'm okay. And I felt a bit funny, actually, because I would say, yeah, I'm good, everything's fine. And I'd have no more information to say because I wasn't doing something. I don't know. Sometimes are we doing something just because it makes for interesting conversation? Really? I just wonder, because otherwise we feel like we're boring. We've got nothing to say when people ask us what we're doing or what's happening. And one of the things most people ask me straight up is, how's work going? So there's automatically this focus on what I'm doing vocationally. So yeah, people picked up on a change and initially didn't understand it, but it's been great to then have some conversations with people about things. And that's why I really want to share this as well, because I think when we talk about slowing down, it gives others permission to, because deep down, I wanted to slow down. Deep down, I wanted to slow down. I didn't want to be doing all this stuff. And yet I felt trapped, like on the hamster wheel, so that momentum was going and I couldn't stop it. So I want to share with you a lot of the things that I stopped last year. And And some of them were little things and some were quite big. So the first big thing was that I closed my office, which makes it look like you're going backwards in business. And, but the truth was we had our home back to ourselves again because my mother had been living with us for a little while, and now she's in an aged care home where she's totally having fun, by the way. She's loving it and living her best life. So I had the house back to myself during the day. So I realized I didn't need to go anywhere. I was actually really happy at home and I was just enjoying being at home. So the office didn't make sense anymore. And also, I found it stressful being at the office. I think because I'm a mum and there are things to do, and like people argue about this, that you need an office so you can get away from the home stuff. But I like to take breaks from my work and do something different, and I need to be at home to do that. So I'll work for an hour or so and then, okay, now I need to get the wash out. And it means I'm having variety in my day and getting up and doing something. So that was really important, and just the financial cost of it. My clients are used to dealing with me on the phone or online anyway. So the office went. But that was a really big sign, and a lot of people really were worried about that and didn't understand that, because it looks like you're going backwards, and they thought, the business wasn't doing well or whatever. I can tell you now that business is better. I'm less busy, but business is better. So anyway, I stopped making products. I am going to tell you now that my other business, Inspired by Zalima, while well-intentioned, that really isn't for me. I'm not a salesman. And I like being creative, and I think I misconstrued that outlet into making products. Just because I could. So I stopped making products. I stopped taking on big projects so my main business, if you don't know, is web design, a web agency business. So I stopped taking on big projects because the big projects, even though they might be more money, they're a lot more stress. And I don't know that you make that much more money in the end anyway. And I also... This was big. This was bigger than closing the office for me, but letting go of staff, because it all fell back to me, which sounds counterintuitive when you're trying to stop things. But even though it was scary, it worked out really, really well. And I've been enjoying being hands-on more in the business. And it's just been about managing the projects. That's why I don't take on big projects anymore. So I stopped having my phone in my room at night. Now, I wasn't using my phone at night most of the time, but just knowing it was there, I'd have it on the charger there, in my drawer, in case it rang, in case of something. I took it out of my room, left it in the charger in the lounge room now. I don't know. It seems to have helped, and I don't miss it being in my room. I stopped being accessible by phone, so that's as much. So I've been using the Do Not Disturb feature on my phone, so that I can manage when I take calls and who I take calls from all the time, because I had to filter out a lot of noise, I guess, in my life. And I think that this is a problem of the current day and age, is that how accessible we are to people. Anyway, that's another topic for another day. But so I use Do Not Disturb on my phone a lot. So I'm sorry if that means you've been calling me. And I take a little while to get back to you. If you need a response quicker, it's actually better to send me a text or something, because it's just, it's easier, and I do that when I'm on the phone. And I stopped being on Facebook. There's more to that too, and that's another conversation. basically, I didn't like being on there. From a business perspective, I have a whole other conversation about that as well, because Facebook is not what it used to be, and I think most people know that. But even just from a personal side of things, I didn't like being on there anymore. So I switched that off. I deactivated my account without any fanfare, by the way. I didn't make a big dramatic, I'm disappearing for a while or whatever. I just stopped it. Sometimes I reactivate it because I need to access something, and then I deactivate again. I haven't missed it. It also means, this is an interesting byproduct of that, when I run into people now, I don't know what's been happening in their life. And I like that because it means I can ask them, how are you? What's been happening? And I don't already know. I always struggled that with Facebook. It's like, well, you run into people, you've got nothing to say. Hey, I've seen your life on Facebook. So, I find that I can genuinely ask how people are, and then react in a genuine way because, I didn't know that, because I really didn't know that. I didn't even see hints of that. So any ideas of FOMO, I don't know, which I would have had. I've had FOMO before, fear of missing out, not knowing what's going on. I find I still know the important stuff. I know what's going on where it matters. So that's most of the things, the big things I stopped last year. And this year, with the start of a new year, I have to make sure that I don't pick up things that I shouldn't be yet either. So it's interesting what happened by cutting back a lot of things. And there was, to be honest, there was a question mark over keeping the business at all, the web agency. There was a question mark over that. But it was really hard to discern which of all my activities needed to stay when I was just running them all, because it's noisy. You can't really, you can't think clearly. You can't see clearly. You're not hearing God clearly. So one of the things that came up by the end of the year after cutting back all of the things is that, the business is a keeper. It's in a good space. And I was really happy and enjoying that by the end of the year. And the other thing was basically this podcast, that was still on my heart. It had been on my heart for a long time. And after cutting back all the other things, I didn't miss the other things. And this one was still on my heart. And that's not to say I haven't had doubts and opposition about this, even as we start the year and we've started recording. Because even though this is the first podcast for the year, we've already recorded 2 that I've done with my daughters. And afterwards, there's all this doubt that comes in, but I'm clear on the instruction this time because I took time and sat with it, and I've had multiple revelations from God about it and with other people and things. So it's not, this one was a persisting desire, I guess. And so that's my encouragement to you for 2025. Don't rush into it. Don't rush to even set your goals. Go have a look at last year first. See what God has been speaking to you about in the year. Look at the things that you should cull in your life. Like, okay, let's not use cull. Let's use pruning, because pruning, you understand, then is going to produce new growth. And have a look at that. Don't rush it. Don't rush the process. Spend time with God. Get clear instruction before moving ahead. It'll help stop the mistakes. But our God is faithful, and he's always there re-guiding us. Pray that he'll guide your steps and make your path straight. The other thing we looked at, and another thing you should look at as a mum with kids at home, or kids at all actually, because maybe your grandchildren are part of your life. Look at the season that your family's in and what needs to happen right now. It's the mum that needs to adjust. It is, because the husband you know, his primary focus is working and the financial support of the family in most cases where that's possible. And so again, in the case where it's possible as a mum, you need to adjust with the flow of your family. So I realized as well that our eldest daughter is going into year 11 this year. So she's going to do year 11 and 12. I hope that didn't just blip. My screen just blipped. She's going into year 11 and 12. That's a big deal. She's going to be under a lot of stress, which means the household will feel it. So I was like, okay, I need to de-stress. We can't, we need to remove other stresses in the house so we can help her get through this. Because there's a lot of emotional hand-holding that goes through getting them through year 11 and 12. And I want to make sure she's supported well, and like things like even just feeding her well, being able to make sure she's fed well. And I couldn't do that where I was at before last March. And so she's going to do 11 and 12, and then as soon as she's done, our next daughter will do year 11 and 12. So we're going into this busy season. And then remembering that I have a 6-year-old and he is not as self-sufficient as the teenagers, even though I think I was quite often treating him like he was. So that's not fair on him either. So as a mum, I looked at where the family's at and knew I had to make some changes. Which is really, really important. It's important for the kids and your husband and yourself. So that's another reason I didn't want to be super busy during the day, is I need that quiet time as well. And I don't need to spend I can't actually spend the whole day that the kids at school, that time where I don't have questions flying at me all the time. I can't spend that whole time working because I've got to be able to rest, which is a topic for another podcast. In fact, particularly introverts. So stay tuned for that, because Zanae and I have recorded one about being introverts and how we manage that. So don't miss that one. I think that will be, anyway, that'll be in a couple of episodes time. So, that is what I wanted to share with you. I hope that is really helpful. And, if you found this helpful, please like this video, share it with other mums that might need to hear this, and subscribe to my channel. I'll get used to saying all this, I hope. Anyway, and enjoy 2025. Like, savor it. Don't rush into it and let it all rush past you in pursuit of goals, and then you didn't actually get to taste 2025 and savor it. So, seek the Lord, take the time, wait for direction. We don't have to rush anything, because God's got everything in hand, and His plans for us they'll come out. In His timing, they'll come about. So, yeah. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll see you in the next episode.